Two people to well, can't talk about it now.
All right, you ready? Here we go. Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Welcome aboard to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, coming to you here on this Tuesday, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Jim Coyle with you as always. Michael DeCoursey sitting in early. We'll be joined by Kevin Brockway as well. Did you guys make sure you send the link to Kevin? Looking forward to that. Michael, sir, how are you doing?
I am well, Jim. How are you?
Been better, but glad to have you along here early on. A little different. We got some switching around to do. Right in the middle of, we finally got through the middle of completed the second round of the NCAA tournament, and it has been it's been something to say the least.
Well, I guess in a season as unusual as this one, having a tournament as unusual as this one should not be surprising to any of us. We have gotten through. Remember, we have gotten through 36 games, and only one of them had to be wiped off the board. Oregon's advancement over VCU. I'd say that would have to be considered a victory in some way. To lose such a small percentage of the games that were scheduled to be played. Obviously, it wouldn't feel that way for VCU. It felt very badly that they weren't able to compete. But overall, it certainly has been a success to date. That it's not to say there haven't been issues. The officiating issue that developed on the first day of the bubbling, if you want to call it that, was not a good moment for the NCAA, and I don't think it was well handled at any level since then. But that you have to say that they have done an exceptional job in constructing this circumstance to have so few issues relative to COVID develop through 36 games.
Yeah, it's still shocking that you hate it for them to make it that far and to get booted on that. But it's good to see that they had all the protocols in place to continue to go forward. The tournament has managed to go forward and be pretty spectacular so far along the way. What a surprise it's been. The Big Ten has been the big one, I guess you'd say. With Michigan, but man, oh man, I it's mind-boggling. I expected it to be crazy, but for it to just be that upside down that's a little surprising.
I wrote about this after Purdue and Ohio State lost on their first day, and as I was watching it happen, and I thought, okay, so what's happened to other mega leagues, if you want to call it that? When the Big East got 11 in 2011, what happened? When the ACC got 9 in 2017, what happened to those teams? How successful were they? Is this unusual that we're seeing? And I've always had the theory, and I said that, I'm sure I've said it to you about Indiana's most recent season, that one of the reasons they failed was that their schedule was too difficult and they didn't have the team to handle it. And I've always felt that if you try to put a college basketball team through a 35 game grinder, you're by the end of the year, they're going to be ground. They're going to be ground up. I mean, that's what happens if you do it. And no one's going to want to hear this now because they're predisposed to antipathy toward the Big Ten because of its success and its pervasiveness in the media, because they have huge fan bases and huge followings, and therefore huge money follows that. But no one's going to want to hear that the league was as good as it was. But what happened in the last 5 days didn't change what it was. It was as deep as any league has ever been, and they played 20 games out of 27-ish That was at least that's what the established standard was. Some met it, some didn't. But that was really hard to deal with. And the result is when you get done with dealing with that, and they say, oh, by the way, here come the next games, and they're even more important. It's hard to recalibrate. And somebody comes in and their whole deal is, we'll do anything we can to beat this team, because if we win this game, our whole season is made. My reputation as a coach is made. And everything, it doesn't matter anything that happens beyond this game. And your thought is, we just have to be who we are in order to survive, and then we'll keep doing that. It often doesn't go well. In 2011, when the Big East got 11 teams in the field, and everybody remembers the 11 and thinking how great that was, right? No, I don't know anybody who looks back and says, boy, what a trash league. They only got 2 teams to the Sweet 16. And they only got 2 teams to the Sweet 16 in part because each of the teams that got to the Sweet 16 played another Big East team in the second round. So they were guaranteed to get 2 in the Sweet 16. Could have, maybe they gotten 4 if they hadn't been arranged that way. Maybe they got none if they hadn't been arranged that way. But they got 2 because they had to get 2. Once they won their first round games, they were guaranteed to advance because Connecticut played Cincinnati, and I think Marquette played Syracuse. And so no one remembers that as being a trash league. So if Michigan somehow wins the national championship this year, maybe they won't go back, and the revisionist history will fade into the history's bin. But the reality is that it was an extraordinarily deep league, and I'll use as an example Penn State, which finished, I think, 4 games under 500 this year, but defeated 6 NCAA tournament teams. Show me another league that has a team that finished 11th or so out of 14 that could do that, and then come back to me.
Captain Brockway joins us. Hey, sir, how are you?
Mike, good morning. Jim, good morning. Yeah, some technical difficulties. Hey, Mike, I was going to bring up this point about the Big Ten and I was fortunate enough to get into some gyms. The one thing that I did notice, Purdue, North Texas, and Baylor, Wisconsin, those 2 matchups, was just the quickness and the athleticism. Is that a fair argument right now with the Big Ten that it's, I thought both teams had a hard time keeping guys in front of them. And does the league need to get more athletic?
Well, was there a player on North Texas more dynamic than Jaden Ivey?
I would make the argument of Hamlet, Javion Hamlet. He was pretty good.
He's a very, very good player, but I would say that if they were to go through a combine test, that Ivey would score higher. I mean, he's a very crafty player. Very hard to defend because he understands offense so well, and they struggled to guard him. It wasn't uncommon for teams this year to struggle to guard Hamlet, and the reality is that they didn't do a good enough job of guarding anyone else, and they did not do a good enough job of reacting to the extraordinary defensive attention that was paid to Travion Williams. That they didn't shoot the basketball well enough from the opportunities that provided.
And mind you, I'm not talking. No, yeah, mind you, I'm not talking about the skill level here. I mean, Jaden Ivey is probably an all-around much better skill player. I'm just talking about the sheer speed with the ball, things that cause problems. I think I've just noticed that a lot with some of these teams in the Big 12 and even in some of the smaller conferences, kind of from those Sun Belt states.
Well, but the Big 12 is out too. I mean, they lost 6 of their 7, so I don't think that's really exactly what the issue was. I go back to what I was telling Jim before, that what has happened for the most part when leagues have been this deep, and I don't know that there's ever been a league as deep as the Big Ten was this year, that what happens is that those teams tend to get worn out. And that when they face a team that is unconventional, as Illinois did with Loyola, in particular, as Texas, as Purdue did with North Texas, if you watch the game that North Texas played against Western Kentucky in the Conference USA final, they ganged up on Charles Bassey and they made it difficult for him to play. And North Texas was able to win that game. in overtime. It was a very similar game that North Texas was able to win because Western Kentucky didn't have an answer to diffuse those double teams and triple teams. And the same thing happened to Purdue on Friday. I don't think Ohio State lost to Oral Roberts because Oral Roberts was so much more physically equipped than they were. I mean, I just don't think that's a realistic deal. I mean, I think they lost because they didn't play well, because they didn't react well to what Oral Roberts presented, and probably because they were a little bit spent from having just gone through 23 Big Ten games.
It is amazing. I think that, what's your take on the Pac-12? I don't know if Jim has asked you this earlier, but have four teams in the Sweet 16, and Michael Lewis from UCLA, another guy, Mick Cronin guy, for them to win 3. What's your thoughts on that conference? Have we underrated that conference?
Well, I think the thing that has to be said about that is that, I mean, did we underrate them or did they underperform? Go back and look at who they played, and go back and look as well at who they beat. And I wrote it last night, so I can go right to my column and I can read you the list of opponents that Southern Cal, Oregon, and Oregon State played. This is the list, okay? Cal Baptist, Montana, BYU, Connecticut, UC Irvine, played San Francisco twice, Texas Southern, Santa Clara, UC Riverside, Missouri, Seton Hall, Eastern Washington, Florida A&M, Portland, Wyoming, Portland again. So there were two Portlands also. UT San Antonio, Portland State, and a Division II school called Northwest University. That was their non-conference right there. There were, in that list that I just read off, 3 NCAA tournament teams and 1 bubble team that didn't make it, and a bunch of not good mid-majors. I mean, that's who they played. And so, and they lost some of those games. Oregon State lost some of those games. I think they lost to Portland State, and I can't remember which other one it was. One of the other no names, maybe it was Irvine. I can't remember. No, I'm sorry, it was Wyoming. They lost to Wyoming. It wasn't our fault. That's who they played. That's who they beat or didn't beat. How are you supposed to rate them highly if that's what they do? Now, understand, in this particular year, scheduling was a mess. And so anybody that you could get on the floor against, you got on the floor against. But I'm not even sure that was that much science in that. I mean, like you could have one of the things that Texas Tech did brilliantly was, I mean, they played Abilene Christian. They played Stephen F. Austin. They played the absolute best of that level team that was proximate to them, so they could get them on the floor, and they were able to build a pretty good power rating out of it. But they weren't. But none of those teams was going to beat them, and so there were teams in California that USC could have played to help their schedule. The only team that's alive in the Pac-12 that played a representative schedule was UCLA. They played San Diego State. They played Ohio State, among others. Everybody else was just going through the, whoever line. And like I said, I mean, in the case of Oregon State, Bill Walton made an offhand comment back in an early February game about how they were good enough to make the NCAA tournament. And now everybody is acting like he found the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I mean, their record was trash. They're only in the tournament because they won their conference tournament, and that's part of the way you get in. But nobody missed on Oregon State. Their record was awful. They lost 7 of their final 13 games. And like if you're in a great league like like Wisconsin was, and you go 7-6 out of your final 13 games, you've probably played 12 games, 10 games, whatever, against NCAA tournament teams. That wasn't the case for Oregon State. It's not like they rampaged down the stretch until they got in the tournament. They had not been very good. And they got in the tournament, they earned their spot, and they've played well once here. But the revisionism on that is ludicrous. They weren't good. They did not have a good year until they got to the Pac-12 tournament.
I look back on Indiana beating Stanford by about 20 as well back in December. If you think about that, it's kind of like gauging Pac-12 strength. Also, it's not that Stanford, was great in that league, but they did pull off some wins there.
Well, Mike, he's got to get out of here early today. We appreciate you. Before I let you go, I wanted to. It's great to have you on because you're one of the people that comes on I respect most. And I know you probably only have a few minutes here, but yeah, yesterday I had a tweet that I waited to send out because I was working on getting confirmation on something, and then when I got that I considered a lock, and that I still consider a lock. I sent out information that has been denied in every stretch of the imagination, but I still, the sources that I have, I stand by. It's one of the weirdest things that I've never had this happen ever. So you're one of the people, both of you guys are just two people I respect, but I've never had this happen. So, man, walk me through this mess that I've walked, this hornet's nest I've walked in. Mike, have you ever had this happen ever?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have had circumstances probably a little similar to that. I did cover a coaching search once where I was given to believe that the search committee had the authority to make the recommendation, and they had settled on a candidate, and then that candidate wound up, that candidate had been identified by the search committee, and the president then rejected that candidate. That after it broke, the president, either because of the article or just because of the circumstance, didn't like what was presented, and said, okay, no, you got to do better. But I don't think anything quite like this would be similar. It certainly is an unusual situation. I would say that that what strikes me as odd about it is that anything that would have come up would be a surprise. I don't know. It's an unusual situation, and the whole, nothing about the way his career has reached the point that it has seems fair. I mean, he's one of the greats, and a likely Hall of Famer if he had been able to continue in the way that he once did. He is an extraordinary talent, an extraordinary person, and I feel awful that it's developed the way it has.
Yeah, he certainly had a tremendous run at Ohio State, and it just cut short at the end. But certainly like to see him back in any way, capacity anyway. But I don't want to keep you on. I know you got to get going. I appreciate you so much as always. That's been fun for me. And but you're one of the people I respect most, and I wanted to talk to you about it before we got left. But thank you, sir. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and look forward to talking to you next week.
All right, Jim, I'll look forward to talking to you next week. Thanks very much, Kev.
All right,
you bet, guys. We'll be back with more to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Right after this.
Hey, we all want more, and no one gives you more for less.
Hey, sorry, my CNHI email is down. It went down yesterday, so it's been very stressful.
Oh, that's all right.
And then, well, you got Mike on early anyway, so I guess that worked out.
Well, shit, yeah, I was up so damn late dealing with the fallout of that.
Yeah, well, I didn't, I saw like Rabjohn's denial, and then I didn't see your tweet until later, and somebody texted me about it. I was like in the weeds yesterday because I had 3 stories to do. I did, a spring football story, I did the women's basketball, and then I had the Big Ten notebook. So, I mean, I was like, from like noon to 8, I was like just focusing on getting my stories done.
Yeah, I think it's semantics maybe what is being denied, but I'll tell you this. I'll take all betters that Thad Matta is not the next coach at Indiana. How's that?
Yeah, well, obviously, if your story holds true, yeah. But here's the thing.
But right now, I'm saying right now, I will take all bets. Thad Matta will not be the next coach. I guarantee you.
Yeah,
I guarantee you.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I think makes your story plausible too. I got back from the NCAA tournament late Sunday night, and George sent me those texts from those tweets from Lander and that AU coach in Southern Indiana, saying like good things are coming and stuff. So maybe they had him in line Sunday night, and
I'm telling you, yeah, in line, ready. Did you hear word of a press conference?
I'd never heard that. No.
Yeah.
I just saw the tweets late Sunday night. I came back because I did the NCAA tournament on Friday and Sunday. And then I came back late Sunday night, and George kind of like gave me a heads up on it when I came back here.
Well, I'm not going to pound on it but I'm not. But the confirmation that I got, was someone that I trust explicitly.
Yeah.
And
I've always gone by the 24-hour rule, though. If you report something, it better be confirmable within 24 hours. And you better know that it's going to happen within 24 hours. Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing darts in the dark, so to speak. You know what I mean?
It didn't happen. They're not. He's not getting a job.
That is out of this world. World-class golfing. And a premier resort experience.
And I usually try to go through the school, although JD screwed me the last time.
That's where I screwed up. That's the biggest part of screwed up.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back to the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios on this Tuesday, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Kevin Brockway sitting in. Chronic Hoosier will be here later. Just finished up with Mike DeCoursey early. Indiana's backup quarterback. They lose another backup quarterback with an ACL injury. That's not enjoyable. But that's kind of important news for them. I mean, that leaves Jack Tuttle, hoping that Michael Penix gets back. Leave him a little thin there at QB.
Yeah, well, and it's what's kind of interesting too is Tuttle is the only healthy scholarship quarterback in the spring, but you do have Donovan McCulley coming in next year. The 4-star, and he right now he's playing for Lawrence North, and they're making a nice little run there in the state playoffs, and that was probably the reason why he didn't enroll early. Was because he wanted to be part of that basketball team with CJ Gunn, and they're doing a pretty good job in the state high school playoffs. So I think if Donovan, obviously if everything is okay for Donovan next year and he's healthy, and if Michael Penix comes back, even without Dexter, you'll still have 3 deep in terms of scholarship guys, and it'll give some of those walk-ons a chance to do some things this spring, get some reps as well.
Yeah. So let's see. I guess I don't want to ignore. I sent out a tweet for you all that are not on Twitter. I had information yesterday that came to me that I was at first I was like, yeah, I did not give it much credence. I didn't, and then a second subsequent phone call to someone completely different, I inadvertently confirmed that and felt good about the information, because that's not something that's not the kind of information that I send out. That's not what I generally do, because I'm not trying to break stories, but it came to me, and I thought that it was confirmed by whom it was confirmed by and how it was confirmed. And I still am not convinced that there's not truth to it. And but of course, it has been denied by the school as far as that's not true. But like I said, I will take a bet that Thad Matta is not the next coach in Indiana, and you can decide why or not. But I still have not gotten to speak to that other person yet, so I'm looking forward to doing that first. But I assure you, if anyone thinks that I made it up and threw it out there, that is absolutely nuts. Because that is not. This is what I'm dealing with. Is never something anyone would ever want to deal with. But there was. It's disappointing that it's worked out the way it was. That's for sure. But have you ever had a situation like that where something where you confirmed and did not, and still did not turn out that way?
Yeah, a few in Florida. I can't remember offhand anything specific, but I had a few times where, it happens. It's unfortunate. And, you think you have something and you don't. You see it. Listen, you see it a lot. There's that rush, to break a story. And let's take a look at Diana Rossini on ESPN. Last year she had Doug Maroney being fired. He wasn't fired, and yet they still prop her up as a national analyst on ESPN. There's no retribution for it. So,
I disagree.
And she may have had
here.
What?
And she may have here.
Well, no, she probably took heat for a few days about it, on Twitter and stuff. I'm talking about retribution from your employer, and you're self-employed, so it's a little different. But I think that it's like I said, it's it's one of those things. I think in the digital media age and the social media age, we hear things, but it's important to be careful. My rule of thumb is and I don't consider myself a newsbreaker by any stretch. I did break a few stories at Florida. I think that comes with experience too over time and sourcing and getting people to trust you. But my rule of thumb is if you're going to go with something, it's got to be confirmable within 24 hours. You got to make sure that, it's going to happen. I see so many guys that will report like 2 months out, like, oh, Urban Meyer is going to be the coach here. And then later it's like, I told you so. And that's just silly. That's just like throwing cards at the dartboard, within a day or two, that's kind of my rule of thumb on that.
Yeah, well, this was an after the fact thing.
Yeah, no, and it was. Yeah, no, I know your situation.
But yeah, but
getting to
I'm not. I'll go ahead.
Getting to Mike's point, because listen, I covered the Florida team in 2007 that played Ohio State with Thad Matta, and he recruited a couple of pretty good guys from Indiana on that team, right? Greg Oden and Mike Conley. Certainly he has the credentials, to lead a program like Indiana and a background and stuff. So it makes sense from that regard that he's, a highly thought of coach in national circles. But I know that there's been a lot of rumblings about John Beilein as well. So we'll see how things go this week and in the coming week with regards to what direction they go. And we've got this whole tournament here, and there are going to be a lot of names that are going to be obviously talked about. And I don't think that I think Indiana fans should not be impatient about this, in terms of what direct, I'm already hearing some grumbling. Well, why is it taking so long? It's only been a week, and you've got all these great candidates that are still coaching that you might be able to get. Everyone talks about certain guys being unattainable and buyouts. And we've seen that money is no object here in this, if money was an object, then Archie Miller would still be coaching. So hang tight, fans. They'll get the right guy. Let them do their due diligence on it. Let them, cross their, don't rush to hire. That would be my message to Indiana fans. Don't be frustrated if it's like 2 weeks and, have the sky is falling mentality, especially when you have really good candidates that are still coaching. I went up and I saw Scott Drew coach at Ingle Fieldhouse the other day. That guy's a pretty good coach. And yeah, it might be a shot in the dark, but you never know. Maybe he does want to come back to the state of Indiana. So I think there's a lot out there, and that would be my message.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll see it's just going to be that's the toughest thing is for people waiting, and the media, we want to know because we want to get the information out. But as far as options, there's been a lot of people in discussions. A lot of people have talked about wanting to have, I hate to use the term IU connection, but an IU guy in there, a return to something that they feel has been lost through the traditions of these years. So there's that now. So because the availability, who's actually available to fill the position, there's very few that fit the bill. And then you like Porter Moser, that name comes up a lot, but that's a name that I think that just doesn't have a chance because of Archie Miller. I don't think that they would take a chance on someone like that because of what happened with Archie. Not that it's not a great hire or a good hire, or potentially a good hire, but because of what happened with Archie Miller, they can't take that chance.
Yeah, it would be a risk from that standpoint. Yeah, Porter Moser's been to a Final Four. He might get to another one, though. I mean, Archie's ceiling was Elite Eight. But, yeah, you don't know how – and I think, John Adams, he used to work for the NCAA and the referee. He brought up this good point on Twitter about how you don't know how certain coaches are going to coach or deal with players from that level versus the Power 5 level, because it's a completely different kind of kid that you're dealing with, more of the elite kids and stuff, and some of what goes with it. So it's I think that's an interesting point, and certainly, you take a look at Archie, it didn't work out, so there probably is some trepidation. You might want someone with more of a proven track record of success at the Power 5 level. And I don't know, do you want someone that has been to a high level Elite Eight or Final Four, or do you want someone with just a proven track record of success getting to the NCAA tournament, even if they haven't gotten to, say, even a Sweet 16? And I'll give you an example of a guy who has a proven track record of success at a school that's probably hard to win at, but he's got a resume that says 20 wins almost every year is consistency, and that's Tad Boyle at Colorado. And he would be someone that might be attainable.
Yeah, I just don't see them going outside for that. I just don't see him taking that chance. I just don't see him taking a chance on a name that
didn't they go outside for Kelvin Sampson, and obviously the baggage that came with it, but people regarded him as probably the best X's and O's coach that they had since Bob Knight, and they got him from Oklahoma.
Yeah, but that was a forced hire by the then president. The then president forced that hire. We got to take a quick break, but we'll continue when we come back, and we'll talk more about my debacle that's going on. But I still stand by that information as of right now. But we'll be back with more here on the Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. Back right after this.
Welcome to your
Where's Chronic, by the way? Is he coming on?
He probably won't come on till 10.
All right. By the way, we have a football Zoom at 10:45, right?
I did not,
Jim?
but I'll let you go.
Yeah, so we have to get on there at 10:40. At least I do. I have to get on there at 10:45. So I can't do much on overtime.
You more for less than Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. And right now, Andy Moore Honda is having their first ever 0% sales event. That's right, you get 0% APR financing on a brand new Honda from Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer, Andy Moore Honda. Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, where more means more selection, more savings.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Throw your suitcase in the back. Done gassed up the Pontiac.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Kevin Brockway sitting in as always. Jim Boyle with you here as well. Oh man, get my cleared out there. Mike DeCoursey's already been with us. Chronic Hoosier will be with us later. Yesterday in the action in the tournament, Michigan remains the lone Big Ten team to go forward. Man, that has just been I don't even know how to describe that, what has happened to the Big Ten. And you talk about the Pac-12, who is this tournament has just been it's a bizarro world. It's upside down. The teams that Kansas going out, I mean, every top team that we know are good teams. I think it's from not playing these different style of teams. It's they play all their own conference within their conference, a very, very a lot of similar styles, and they're seeing so many different things now, and it's nuts. My fear, and I said this yesterday, is the path for Gonzaga is just being made easier and easier to finish undefeated.
Yeah, but it's interesting too, and Mike brought up this point too, because you did the breakdown last night. I mean, the Big 12 too, another conference that we talked about as being this ballyhooed conference, they only have one team in, and it's Baylor. And some of its matchups, I mean, I think that there were some teams that were grossly underseeded. Loyola Chicago, the 8, Oral Roberts, the 15. I think that's proving to be true that, hey, listen, I think the committee made some mistakes too in terms of, and I know they rank them now 1 through 64, but I saw that Oral Roberts team play Florida on Sunday night, and I'm here to tell you, I mean, Amos and O'Banner are about as are as good as a lot of players in the Big 12. I mean, they're very good. And that's also a pretty well-coached team. But they play the style of basketball. They took 33s, and they made 33%, but they made the big ones when it counted. It kept them in the game. They forced, 22 turnovers against Ohio State, 20 turnovers against Florida. And that's where the game is headed, Indiana fans. I think that's part of what you need in a new coach as well. Somebody with a little more forward thinking with regards to the game.
Yeah, now as we move forward, games, no more games till the week. What we wait till Saturday before you pick back up, the action picks back up. Where's my bracket?
Yeah, and I think this, whole situation is interesting with regards to, they're experimenting with this TV window, idea of having all the Sweet 16 teams on their same window from Saturday, Sunday, and then doing all the Elite Eight games in primetime on Monday and Tuesday night. And I think it's going to be interesting to see if the NCAA does this moving forward, because I think that they like the idea of having these television windows open and, having it structured this way. What's interesting is, right, because it's traditionally traditionally Thursday, Sunday, right? Wasn't it cool last night to see some college basketball on a Monday night, because you think of Monday Night Football and you have Monday night NCAA tournament? I think that they're going to go forward with this kind of format when they see the ratings Friday, Monday, Saturday, Tuesday, and then, of course, the Final Four. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Now, travel-wise, obviously, for people, I think they like that Thursday, Monday for fans when fans come back next year. But, maybe they would adapt to scheduling Friday, Monday off work to see their favorite teams. But I think this is an interesting setup.
Let's see. Indiana's in a bad position to get a home run higher. No, he was not. I will say this, Beard was in the tournament, so he didn't have an opportunity to talk to them. But I personally just do not see him leaving Texas. I think he's in a great situation. He's already making $4.5 million out in Lubbock, Texas, where that goes a long way. His family, his kids are there. He's successful in a competitive conference. He can go to the Final Four there. He can win a national championship there. He's from there. I know that he absolutely just worships Bob Knight. When he was here in Assembly Hall, he had his teams walking around basically giving them a history lesson. He was putting them through drills that Bob Knight taught him. He was telling the team. I had someone who was in there. Well, I better not say that.
I wrote about that. Yeah, I wrote about that last week. I did a big story that got quite a bit of play last week about Chris Beard and his reverence for Bob Knight and the connections there and giving the team the history lesson. So it was and in talking to him, on the Zooms and stuff, you could really see just the genuine appreciation of what Bob and Pat Knight taught him. And I mean, I think there would be some intrigue there. I mean, I know his daughters are teenage years. I don't know if they're out of high school yet, but he certainly would bring that mindset of, tough man-to-man defense, motion offense, a lot of the principles that made Bob Knight successful. But then there's also the temper too. I mean, we saw Chris Beard, sit down in the middle of a court, arguing a call there. There's a lot there, similarities, maybe the good and the bad with regards to that.
Yeah, I'd be fine with it, but let's see. There's been talk about Mike Woodson. Apparently, rumor was that he had an interview. So there's that. Jay commenting on Michigan. Yeah, I didn't think without Isaiah Livers, I was like, oh man, they're done. But they're the lone team standing. Amazingly.
Is that how his name is pronounced? Livers or Livers?
Well, I don't know. Livers.
I'm just curious. I thought maybe I was mispronouncing it that whole time, but Shawnee Brown stepped up really well at the end of the game. And by the way, because I watched the last 10 minutes, I think Mark Emmert had some of those referees on speed dial. He did not want Will Wade in the Sweet 16 if you saw some of those calls down the stretch. That was the last thing. That was the last thing they wanted. The NCAA wanted was Will Wade in the Sweet 16.
I want it there. I want him in there. That's what they deserve. That. The NCAA deserves that. Why is this guy still coaching, man?
That's what I mean. Yeah, they did not want him. Well, because of the appeals and
come on.
No, I think it's ridiculous too. But I'm just telling you. Yeah. I mean, why was Oklahoma State? They had their appeals with Cade Cunningham. They thought that was going to be great for the tournament, and he got bounced in the round of 32. Also,
it's hilarious. Yeah, I'm pulling for UCLA. You got Michael Lewis in there. Speaking of which, though, Michael Lewis also did he not spend some time in Lubbock?
Yes,
as an assistant.
Yep. And he spent time in Nebraska with Tim Miles. He spent time in the Big Ten as well.
So, but I just, like I said, I don't see him leaving. I don't see that one there happening, Greg. Well, but I guess Chris Beard coached under Pat Knight, ironically. So yeah, that's funny.
Chris Beard is forward thinking though. I think, he does get it, and he's for a guy that he has those old school principles, but he does have a new, a bit of a modern approach as well. I think he's a good blend. Chris Mack.
Someone like Chris Mack, he just, he just cut loose 2 assistants in Louisville, one of which was Bill Murray's son. Dang it.
didn't make the tournament. And, remember that whole dust up with Calipari and he's playing Africa in the background, Toto's Africa, while he's not wearing a mask.
His wife is from Louisville. And another thing, Brad Stevens' wife is on the board of directors for Butler.
How about that?
So,
by the way, I went to Hinkle for the first time on Sunday, but what a beautiful campus. That is really a pretty campus. This was my first time up there. I was really impressed with, and Hinkle was great. I mean, it was, so much fun, that Baylor-Wisconsin game, and Baylor, Justin Smith
Justin Smith making a run as well. Demezi Anderson isn't with Loyola Chicago.
Yeah, I don't think he's playing though. I think he's.
Well, I know he's not getting any time, but he's getting in.
Transfers in Indiana don't fade out. They just go to other teams and advance in the NCAA tournament. Justin Smith.
All right, Vegas has good odds on Beard. Some people tend to think they have some inside track. Well, that's what people money on things like that. There you go. I just don't see him. I don't have anything on inside on him. I've never said anything on any. Everything that I've gotten has been about after the fact coaches kind of eliminated that guys are not going to be. But I just don't see him. I don't see him leaving Texas personally. He's from there. His family's there, but he absolutely idolizes, and I mean idolizes Bob Knight. The stuff that you had out in your piece, and I talked to someone who worked the NCAA tournament, and he was literally running the drills just like Coach Knight taught him. And he's telling his players, these are the drills that Coach Knight had taught me to run. We were running them, boom. And so they were running those in assembly hall under the banners. He was doing all of that. So you've got that side, the side that would be a natural draw for him.
They forced 22 turnovers against Utah State. I watched that game too. They were just really impressive defensively, hounding. They had that big guy, Nemus Kada, that they had to deal with, and they ganged up on him, and they did a really nice job. And then, you have a bang-bang game against Arkansas, you lose in the final minutes. What about Eric Musselman? He's another guy that highly accomplished. Would he leave Arkansas, though? I think Arkansas does a good job. I think there's more basketball passion and tradition in that state, in that job than there is at Texas Tech. But Chris Beard built up Texas Tech. There's something to be said for that.
And there are plenty of great citizens out there to probably move into this position. Demezi Anderson had 4 minutes all year. There you go.
Thanks, Matt.
Let's see. The negative fan base has something to do with that. Players and coaches.
Don't be too hard on yourselves with that. That's all. That's every fan base. Florida wants to run out Mike White after losing Oral Roberts. They're far worse. Trust me. It's everywhere. It's not just you guys.
Still think Musselman is telling Smith what he can and can't do on the floor. Justin's, yes, that's why he worked out. He was not allowed to shoot 3-pointers. Absolutely. He was not allowed hardly, not in any meaningful minutes was he allowed to shoot a 3-pointer. And that's why he worked out there. He had a role, and that was to be a scorer on the inside, a rebounder, and he did a great job at that. He had I don't remember what his shooting percentage is, but it's very high, 2-point shooting percentage for them. And so he did a perfect job for them.
I think a lot of players too, and you take a look at it, Justin Smith, for example, and Billy Donovan had a great line once, when I was covering him, at Florida, when he was talking about NBA, because so many people think that they have to, show their tool shed. And we talked about that with Trace Jackson Davis Tudine to throw show his 3-point shot. But 80% of NBA players are role players. They fill a role. And if you can do one thing really well, Dennis Rodman made a lot of money rebounding the basketball. But if you can do one thing really well, and the one thing that Justin Smith does well is defend. And if you could do that really well, you could get into the league. And I'm sure that's what Eric Musselman sold him on.
Yeah, Musselman is a name that has popped up, which, again, a very, very viable name, I think, in a normal circumstance. But I don't know, man. I think that between the Indiana fan base, the former players, and the former players have more pull. Not pull, but this is more of an Indiana related hire because of Scott Dolson's past, his experience. There's just more being involved in it than in any previous one. And I don't know what that is going to end up doing for the head coaching position, but I'm just going to be shocked if there's just not a confluence of something going on there. And also you got to remember there's Mike Roberts, who's kind of hanging in the wings. I'm assuming he's just maybe running the team right now.
Yeah. And, he's an Indiana guy. And I think that it's like I said, I don't be impatient, don't think that, we got to hire a coach this week, yada, yada. There's still plenty of coaches out there. Maybe wait till the end of their seasons because you never know. You don't know if, maybe Scott Drew might change his mind or, someone of that caliber. So, and if he doesn't, then, you just go back to your plan A. I think Scott Dolson knows what he's doing. He's got a basketball background. He's going to do his due diligence. And as I tweeted last night, you take a look at what Terry Morton is doing in the women's tournament and how he's built that program. You take a look at Tom Allen. You need someone with that kind of vision and that kind of plan and someone that's a program builder. And I think Scott realizes that too. And that's something that I think is an important part of the equation too, having vision, having themes. They talked about Archie's plan, I guess, when he was first hired, but did he really have like a vision, a theme, or was there one thing that Indiana basketball in his tenure could hang their hat on it? I think he wanted to be defense, but it never worked out that way with the backline.
Yeah, that's for certain. We move forward now. Games are off this week. Indiana, the women's team, let's don't forget about them. They won their game yesterday.
I watched it.
When do they play next? They play today. What's that?
No,
schedule?
they play Wednesday. They play Belmont, which upset the 5 seed Gonzaga, so they get a 12. So really good chance here for Terry Morin and Indiana to go to the Sweet 16 for the first time in program history. And listen, they were smothering defensively yesterday against VCU, held to 31 points, 23% shooting from the field, 17 points off turnovers. Just a really impressive defensive performance. Grace Berger was good in the first half. Allie Papberg was good in the second half. And Mackenzie Holmes, they got the ball inside to her more. Yeah, they were a little sluggish offensively early in that game, but they got better as the game went on.
Mackenzie Holmes, of course, becoming Indiana's first All-American in women's basketball. But this is not a slight against her. Grace Berger, I'm telling you, it will go down as the greatest player in Indiana women's basketball history. She's just a phenomenon of a player. I think she's going to be a pro player. She is just a great basketball player.
What I thought was interesting was last year, like Allie Papberg was the one that everyone expected, to have this and continue to have this breakout senior. And she's been kind of up and down, but Grace Berger, you were right, has really carried them this year.
Let's see. Hopefully the next coach brings a few of his best players with him to IU. Matt says, can someone enlighten me on the IU AD Dolson? I don't know his history. When he's saying an IU guy, I don't recognize his name. Scott Dolson has been around here forever. He's been in that department forever. He was a manager on the 87 national championship team. He has worked inside every facet of that office. And that's why he was trained. I mean, that guy was trained to do this job for a long time.
High school classmate of what? Delray Brooks, right up in Michigan City.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yep.
So he has done every different position and been around. Basketball is a sport he's been around the most. He was here when Knight was here, so he's got great teaching. He is just. I have
he's a basketball guy. Yeah.
And I have complete confidence that he is going to make a great hire. I really believe that he's no doubt doing his due diligence, which is the opposite of what was done last time. There was none done last time.
I thought, I don't know if we talked about this last week, but I thought what was fascinating in the Dolson Zoom press conference last week was him talking about how he was around the program and went to practices and things those last few months under Archie. I'm sure that shaped a lot of his opinion on what he saw, what was good, what wasn't good, and what he wanted.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back. Connie Hoosier should be with us from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington. Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. We're brought back with more right after this.
Hey, we all want more, and no one gives you more
I
for
got
less than
this.
Man,
Man, oh man, oh
Dude.
man.
I'm just
What?
sick to my stomach.
It happens. Time will heal everything. It'll be forgotten about in a week.
Oh, my God.
It'll be on to the next thing. Just ride it out. That's all. That's all. That's the best advice I can give you.
Oh shit! What I miss?
Oh, I don't think you missed anything. My information that I got yesterday that I confirmed with a second person was denied. Oh, of course, denied by everyone, but there's
so much subterfuge going on right now that I think half of what's been out, if it's sourced, is probably deliberate to mislead.
I am wondering that very thing on this one, and I have not. My confirmer, I guess I will call him the confirmer. I have not been able to get back in touch with yet, but it's someone
I tell you, the thing that I found most stymieing about the whole thing so far is this discussion is happening so far from the medical staff and the equipment staff that's like 95% of everything that gets out of 17th Street.
Yep. How are you doing, man?
Oh, another day in paradise.
What's new? Anything?
No, I did. Kind of like yourself. I've had a lot of things come through my ears that, from people that are generally really, really well informed. It just nobody knows shit.
Yeah.
Which, on the one hand is a great thing. That's exactly how you want this process to go about. Simply because, how many examples do you have of searches that went sideways when stuff got out prematurely and just threw a wrench into the gears? So, ideally you want to keep that out of the fray, but at the same time, it's also one of those things where it allows misinformation to run rampant. And like I said, I do think it also manipulates the potential for, or at least opens the door
And giraffes, lodging that is out of this world, world-class golfing, and a premier resort experience that is waiting for you on your next visit to French Lick, West Baden.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Solersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Joined now by the great Connie Hoosier. Sir, how are you doing?
I am doing well, man. As well as can be expected, I suppose, for a coaching search now entering week 2 with not much coming out as we continue to watch what's a wild bracket. I'm still over here sulking in another year with Indiana not in it, and another year where I didn't fill out a bracket because I'm not gonna lie, man, my soul's just not in it when the Hoosiers aren't participating, or at least the men. Women are looking awesome right now, but other than that, doing well.
Well, it would not have done you any good to fill out a bracket this year. I can tell you that, because you would have to be Basquadamus to fill this thing out. It has been the wildest yet. We halfway before we played yesterday's second round games, they had already set the mark at 11 upsets And an upset is deemed a team that is seated 5 spots or more below a team. They'd already eclipsed that mark before yesterday's games. So it's just been an unbelievable wild ride already.
Yeah, everybody knew going into this year it was going to be a little bit wonky with COVID and just all the abnormalities in the season. This is abnormal to the extreme for sure. I think probably what stands out most is just it's been a blue blood bath. I mean, all the traditional elite programs just really struggling either to get in or to hold serve for those that did make it in. But it's made for some great viewing. I'll say that much. But it kind of begs the question if there's not some larger forces at play, reshifting of the power balance in Division I basketball.
Absolutely, Kevin. You jump in there if you will.
Yeah, no, just from watching the games this weekend, Chronic, it's pretty plain to see the Big Ten struggles. And I talked a lot about, Mike DeCoursey kind of scoffed, but the athleticism. What I'm seeing is a lot of quicker teams around the country, and the Big Ten having a hard time guarding guys off the dribble. Now, he brought up, Oral Roberts, and maybe that's an exception. But, I watched Oral Roberts play Florida on Sunday night, and Oral Roberts has got some pretty athletic guys as well.
No, I mean, that's the thing that struck me is teams that really are able to play with length. And I'm not just talking about height, but, teams that really stretch, that play above the rim, that make it really difficult. But that goes both ways. One thing that struck me looking at the round of 32, only 3 teams advanced that failed to score 70 points. So for all the emphasis on defense, and that goes kind of my core DNA. Defense wins championships. Defense is the foundation that every team is built upon. Well, perhaps there's truth to that, but at the end of the day, you got to score the basketball, and this tournament certainly seems to be rewarding the teams that are able to score at a pretty good clip right now.
As this tournament moves on, and I don't forget real quick the women's team. I talked earlier about that with Kevin, but they got their win yesterday. They moved forward in the tournament. So, and this is they have, as Kevin said, the potential to make a nice run here.
Now that you talk about a team that knows how to play defense, my goodness, Big Ten record for tournament play. Holding an opponent to the fewest points, just 32 for Virginia Commonwealth. Just an absolute clinic. It doesn't hurt when you've got Grace Berger and Allie Patberg out there, as well as Mackenzie Holmes. I mean, that's a heck of a trio to build the team around. And then you throw in the Alexa Gubes and all the other members of this team. But at the end of the day, you got to tip your cap to Terry Moore, and she's got a squad that's locked in, that knows who they are and what it takes to win. And, they started off a little bit shaky, but that was something that she mentioned in the press conference. When you have a 10-day pause, you got to shake the rust off a little bit. But they stuck to who they are. It was, playing tremendous man-to-man, or I guess woman-to-woman defense, and just working the ball around the floor and getting open looks. And just really blew the doors off with that in the second half. Should be a really, really interesting matchup against Belmont in the next round. And we'll see where it goes from there. It gets real after that. Probably gets real next round, to be totally honest with you. This is a team that's got potential to make a deep run. So happy to have at least some Hoosier.
As we go on the Indiana coaching search, Scott Dolson is doing that, and he's doing, I don't want to say a one-man job, although he is, but he is involving a ton of people. He is doing a ton of interviews, and those continue. Yesterday, I put out some information that Thad Matta was set to become the coach, and that because of some health issues, that was not going to become the case. That was denied by you, but I still stand by that at the moment. But regardless of that, I don't think Thad Matta's, because of that, I will tell you, I don't think Thad Matta is going to be the next coach of Indiana. So with that said, I don't know who's still out there. There's options. I think there's going to be options that we don't really know about, names that kind of pop up. They're like, oh, wow, didn't think of that, because I think Scott is going to uncover a lot of rocks.
Yeah, we were talking just before we went on. This is it's frustrating from a fan perspective, frustrating from a media perspective, because there's so little credible or at least verifiable information coming out, or at least that you can get confirmed. On the flip side of that, though, this is probably exactly how you want the coaching search to be run. History is replete with examples of deals that went sideways when information got out prematurely and kind of gummed up the gears and kept things from coming to fruition. So idealistically, you want to talk to the guys you want to talk to and get all the information available and make the best choice that's in front of you. It certainly seems that's what Dolphins is doing right now, albeit just with a really, really small circle of advisors and confidants here. So there's not a whole lot getting out right now. The one thing that I've kind of learned throughout this, everybody I know that knows stuff doesn't know anything right now, which tells you it's an extremely small circle of advisors and people around and look for their, again, frustrating on our side, but good for the process.
Absolutely. And when someone like Brad Stevens doesn't, I don't want to say turns down Indiana, but doesn't come to Indiana, it's, and let's say that if there was a second one, let's just pretend Chris Beard turned it down. It's not about that Indiana is not a good place or a worthy job. Those two people, it's about not leaving their situations if that comes to be. Stevens has said that repeatedly now. That still doesn't mean he's completely out of the picture, I would think, but he's pretty much eliminated himself. But it's not about coming here. I mean, it's now there are so many jobs that are equitable now that didn't used to be. There were only so many places where you could win before, and now there's a lot of different places where you can win. Chronic. I think we lost him.
Uh-oh.
But go ahead, Kevin. What do you respond to that?
No, I agree. I think with the way television is now, you can be seen anywhere in the country. There's so many networks or so many outlets. You have all these conference stations, and it's really about so many programs now have national exposure that didn't have that same exposure 20, 30 years ago. So I think that's certainly that could be a selling point in any program, and it's about where your program is. And right now, Indiana's program is not in a good spot, as we know, and that's why they're looking for a new coach. So, but Indiana still gets TV viewership because it's Indiana and because of the fan base, the rabid fan base. But you can be seen, and you can really build a program in so many places now that are nationally relevant that you couldn't probably 10 or 20 or 30 years ago.
Well, look at Lubbock, Texas is not exactly a bastion of basketball, but Bob Knight, his stop there, I really infused life into that, and Chris Beard continues that. The dude makes $4.5 million at Texas Tech. I mean, that's doing pretty well at a school like that. You would not. That is not a $4.5 million job a few years ago.
Also, hey, places like Texas and Florida. I mean, let's not forget no state income tax as opposed to Indiana too. I mean, that's another draw. You'd be surprised.
Thinking wisely. But we got to take a break. We still got a few more minutes. But it's just it's going to be a ride, and I hate that like that information yesterday. But I still think it was true, Kevin. I'm going to be honest with you. I still, because I've talked to. I think it becomes nowadays with HIPAA. I think because it was health related. There was just a lot of different issues but also I think because I think it's a possibility that if that were the case and he could not take the job for whatever, that's just like another hit and they're trying to keep it inside. It don't want to sound like they lost another potential coach. So it doesn't want to add up as in appearance and perception.
My thing is this, though, if they did lose out on him, and we have talked about his career and stuff, but, he still hasn't coached in a while. Still, it didn't really end well for him at Ohio State, if you remember.
His health prevented him from recruiting, and his recruiting really suffered.
Yeah, but, you could have assistants and still recruit and get that done. I think there's better out there. Let's put it that way. And I think you could get better. And I don't think, like I said, I know I've seen plenty of people leave other programs. I think you're selling that short in terms of the fact that Chris Beard would never leave Texas Tech, Scott Drew would never leave Baylor. I think, the right sales pitch could entice them. And that's why I think Indiana fans should be patient and wait for the NCAA tournament to end. If you don't have something lined up the first week of April, then you panic. But don't panic now. It's there's still plenty of time, and there's still plenty of
panic. I don't think anyone's panicking.
Tournament.
They just want to know. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Back right after this.
Hey, we all want more, and no one gives you more for less.
I feel better now. But I guarantee it's true. I promise you. I guarantee you.
Yep.
So, and I'll take all comers. Anybody want to bet? Thad, I got any bets? Thad Matta is not the next coach at Indiana.
I agree. I tried reaching out to Chronic, by the way.
Oh, okay. Hey, John, introduce yourself to Kevin. I forgot you're on here. Kevin, John is going to be producing.
Hey, John.
Hey, Kevin.
Will's still with us. He'll be back up in technical. I don't know. I got a head engineer. What?
Sorry about, I'm very frustrated. That CNHI email went down yesterday. It's like the worst time because I've been communicating with the NCAA with them. So hopefully it will be back up next week. But if not, then the MSN is a good backup to send that link to.
Man,
I sent you that text this morning, actually, Jim. But I know you were probably buried with stuff that my CNHI was working.
No, actually, this morning I overslept. I'll be honest with you because I was up so freaking late dealing with.
You were anxious about that.
No, well, I was trying to answer. I was getting pounded and trying to answer people, and
you don't have to answer everyone. You know what I mean?
Well, I was on the website. Yeah. I was on the site. I mean, people calling you a liar. I'm like, give me a break. Yeah, I'm like, really? You think I just flipping made that up? Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
Putting that out is dangerous enough for it to make it up. What are you, crazy?
Yep. Oh, all right, so we got 10 more minutes, 12 more minutes.
Yeah. Seems like a Borg in here today. Oh, man.
Welcome to your extraordinary destination, French Lick, West Baden, Indiana. You'll find great places to visit, to stay, to dine, and to play. We offer an up-close animal encounter with elephants and giraffes, lodging that is out of this world, world-class golfing, and a premier resort experience that is waiting for you on your next visit to French Lick, West Baden.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Kevin Brockway here with me, Jim Coyle. Had Chronic Hoosier on. Lost him a little bit early, but getting him back next week. Mike DeCoursey was on earlier. Indiana basketball coaching search continues. NCAA tournament continues. How about the stroke of luck having virtually every coach in Indianapolis.
Yeah, no question. And there was a lot of good coaching that I watched over the weekend. It was quite impressive when you saw what Paul Mills at Oral Roberts, what he's doing there is, how about this? This was great. Okay. 75-74 game, last 3 minutes. Florida has a player out on the floor that's a 30% free throw shooter. Why Mike White does that? They foul him on purpose to get him on the line for a one-on-one. And then the coach Mills admits that he did it on purpose to steal a possession because he felt like he wasn't getting stops. So coaches are, they're pulling out all the stops here.
Christian Watford was in town over the weekend. Found that out after the fact, unfortunately, but it was kind of cool that he got to
watching his brother. Yeah,
ironic that his brother got to play in the hall after all.
Yeah, no, that they beat the Bonnies. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to go to Assembly Hall for any of the games, but I was at Lucas Oil for Purdue. I was at Hinkle for we would call it for Baylor, Wisconsin, and then I went to Indiana Farmers Coliseum for Oral Roberts, Florida. And you talk about a place that bad Wi-Fi. They had curtains up in the third deck you couldn't see. It was not necessarily media friendly, let's put it that way. But it was, and it's an interesting kind of old building, old structure there out in the fairgrounds, the farm grounds out there in Northeast India. It was a little different.
I've roped in that arena before. That thing's been around it's had the 1957 NBA Finals, the Beatles, all kind. It had an escape bowl from a rodeo. It's crazy. Yeah, all kinds of history. Let's see. The portal. The portal is going to be something big for Indiana.
Fascinating. Yeah.
For the new coach, the next coach. And I've said this repeatedly. I think this team right here is an NCAA team it's ready to go. If you have Trace Jackson Davis and all these guys back with a new coach, they're going to have to bring in a transfer or two. It has to. You've got to elevate the guard play right now. And you've got Armand Franklin. You got Christian Landers you're going to bring along. Right now, you've got Rob coming back, but the guard play has to be elevated. If you watch this NCAA tournament, if you see nothing else, great guards. Who's killing it in this tournament? It's the guards that are just – and these teams, the quickness, whoo.
That's what I mean, the athleticism, the quickness. Take a look at a guy like Max Abmas at Oral Roberts. I mean, you talk about a guard, why can't you find a guard like that for Indiana, right? I mean, it's and that's the thing. You need the shooting. You need guys that can handle the ball well. I think that's a big issue for Indiana. Ball handling, turnovers, that remains a big bugaboo as well, and passing and just working together. But yeah, if you get Trace Jackson Davis back next year, and you keep guys like Armand Franklin healthy. And that's the other thing too, the injuries. That's, I think strength and conditioning needs to be examined and looked at and addressed, or maybe even coaching and practice. How hard you practice guys. That's another issue too. I know you want to build a work ethic and you want to be intense, but so many injuries during the Archie Miller tenure, injuries in practice. Race Thompson getting whacked in the face and stuff in a late, and then, he did come back, but was he really the same down the stretch because of, wearing the face guard the whole time?
Okay. And something I noticed, and I know that being as physically fit as possible, the weight training is of uber importance. The stronger are, the faster you are, the higher you can jump, the more resilient to injuries and all that is supposed to be the case. But as I watch, you look across this tournament, you look at Jaden Ivey, you look at Desumnu, you look at these guys, they're not ripped. they look like old-time basketball players. They look like old-time guards. They're not ripped. I mean, they're athletic and strong, but they're not ripped and like machines. I'm wondering if it's just a tip too far they're going with the physical training. Because they look, all of Indiana's guys look great. They look like they should be on a calendar, but it's just really starting to wonder. And I know that should not be related to injury. Their injuries a lot of times have been kind of freaky, but as I watch those guys, they look like basketball players still. They're not all ripped to shreds like Indiana's guys.
Well, strength and conditioning, a lot of it, I know at Florida, the way they approach strength and conditioning down there was functional training, which is training muscle movements as basketball movements. And I think that that's something that be interesting to find out how much the Indiana, because like you said, the fluidity and listen, we saw that in the Big Ten tournament. They looked like that everything was mechanical. They looked like they were playing in quicksand.
Yeah, speaking of quicksand, that was Purdue against North Texas. I mean, man, and I'm not picking on Purdue. It's just that you could see the big lumbering kind of Purdue style. Man, North Texas, they'd already scored and was back down the other end before Purdue got set up on defense.
Yeah, no, they were the quicker team throughout that whole game. And I even asked Matt Painter about that after the game, and he talked about he just thought they were kind of shifty also, and North Texas was hitting shots too. So they put Purdue's defense in a bind that way. But I can tell you, Sasha Stefanovic scored 9 points early in that game, hit a couple of threes. You thought it was going to be a good night for him. They could not keep him on the floor because of his defense, because he could not stay in front of North Texas's guards at all, and they had to take him out for the rest of the game. He played Painter had to play Isaiah Thompson the rest of the game because he knew that if he kept Stefanovic in there, he was just going to get burned the whole night.
Parker Stewart, I don't know what he's like at all. We know that he supposedly shot well down where he was, but that's at a completely different level. Haven't seen him. Wasn't able to get on the floor this season, so he's a question mark.
If he were that good, why didn't Archie try to play him to save his job? Now I know I've heard some stories about the emotional situation, and I get that, and maybe that was the reason.
But see, I'm not buying that, because I have never heard of an athlete not dealing with that type of thing actually by playing. That it's a distraction. It gets you away from it. I'm just finding he's doing everything else. So basketball was the only thing he couldn't do. He's going to school. He's talking to people. He's doing everything. So I'm not buying that personally, but nobody's going to believe me right now, and that's fine. But I promise you, I don't believe that. And I don't know what the situation was, because they needed desperately a shooter, and that's what he is known to do. I mean, you could have simply said,
Armand Franklin was hurt. It would have been a perfect person to plug in if he were ready in that situation.
The Loyola Illinois game was fun to watch. The kids from Loyola were having fun. I don't feel the Hoosiers had much fun in playing.
100%, Jennifer. That's a great observation. And I think that reflects on things like free throw shooting. I think they play tight. I've said this before in the show. They play tight. They play tight under Archie, and they need to find someone that, and you look at the football team under Tom Allen, it's diametrically the opposite in terms of like how they play, and they're loose and they're having fun. And that's a good observation.
Well, trying to follow that script, they spent way too much time worried about everything under the sun instead of playing and reacting. But anyway, that's gone. We're still waiting on who the next coach would be. Someone asked earlier, are they still in the tournament? Possibly. Chris Beard just finished, so no one has been talked to. It's gonna be a process unless something happens like could have happened yesterday. And you can take from that whatever you will, but because that's someone who is available right now. But these others, Chris Beard, for example, if that conversation is probably taking place now or taking place soon, even though they've lost in the tournament, I guess they're not having the meetings now, the coaches' meetings, like they normally would do.
The coaches convention for the Final Four.
Yeah.
I do not know. That would be interesting to look into, but I would think that they would not encourage having everyone come in from all over the country to do that.
Let's see. I want to thank everybody real quick. We'll do like a 5-minute overtime to go through those because I got to get out here real quick on the radio side, so we don't go over. But appreciate everybody here. I hope you guys go out and have a great day. Make sure you wear your mask. Do something nice for somebody. And until tomorrow, for Kevin Brockway, Chronic Hoosier, and Mike DeCoursey, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio. All right.
I went to Yogi's on Saturday night. Used some of your gift card, had some wings. Watched the Texas Abilene Christian game.
Yeah, we'll do that again this week, actually. But we'll talk after the press conference today. With who's the press conference today with?
We got Raheem Lane and Jack Tuttle, who's a real ray of sunshine, as we know. He loves talking to the media, Jack Tuttle.
Yeah, I don't usually do players anyway, so I probably won't do that, but I'll let you get to it here in a second. But yeah, yesterday we had Tom Allen, so that was good having him. We'll have some of that on tomorrow, but good talking to those guys and seeing them. Talk to the defensive coordinator, so that's up and running, but nobody wants to talk about that right now. Everybody wants to talk about basketball. Man, it's just a guessing game. So as you can see by and mine was not a guess. I will say that the information I put out, not a guess. And I will promise you, I'll take any bets that Ed Matta is not the next basketball coach at Indiana, and that's all I'm going to continue to say on that deal. But who's going to be the next coach? No idea. I mean, Chris Beard, I don't think he's leaving Texas. But hey, if they had the money to offer him substantially more than he's making at 4.5. But someone else I spoke to that I can value their very, very opinion because is they don't think that he's worth that kind of $6.5 million money, Kevin. I mean, he has it's a risk, but he's worth he's worth how bad you want him.
Yeah, and I think that's that's a good point, but I think you could do a lot worse than him in terms of his resume and his accomplishments. He took a team to the NCAA finals, plays really good defense. His teams play really good defense. They play really hard for him. And that was like, talking about the players about, I kind of asked why do players play hard for him? And I think it was Kyler Edwards that said that, he really is invested in you more than as a basketball player, more than a person. And that's, that Tom Allen thing again. And I think that's the kind of guy you want to look for, somebody that's, and I don't know, what was Archie? Maybe Archie was, maybe Archie wasn't. I don't know. I mean, that's not the only thing. You want a good strategist, but there's something to be said for building that culture where, players respond to you and want to play hard for you.
Yeah, because generally you see that. As a matter of fact, you don't have to look any further than look at Arkansas and Justin Smith. He went down there and he's not doing what he wants to do per se, and I think that was part of the problem. But I think that was only part of the problem with Archie. I think the other part was the fact that he was trying to stick him into a script, and he's like, dude, I get it. You cannot script athletics. You just cannot script sports. It's a reaction sport. It's a reaction thing. And I think that Archie just wanted to control too much, and he's trying to control the players within the confines of his controlling system that it's just not functionable. And he's an elite athlete. Whether you Justin Smith, if you like him or not, he's elite athlete. And to confine that is just Eric Musselman is getting exactly out of him what he needed for them to be successful. And what are they? Very successful and competing in the NCAA tournament.
I do find it funny that there were a lot of people last year when he left in May were talking about the addition by subtraction thing with him with Justin Smith, and that's turning out to be wrong on all levels. I mean, they could have really used a Justin Smith type this year. Indiana could have. I mean, he was, he wasn't a great offensive player, but he would have given him a lot of other intangibles.
Absolutely. Other than that, the transfer portal, that's how Indiana's going to build quickly, but the teams are doing that. But I don't think that that's going to be something that they have to do very long. The state is stocked with talent, but not just that. They will get back to getting the elite out-of-state talent that they were not able to land during the Archie Miller era. Archie did not land one elite out-of-state talent here. Geronimo is a kid that came here. He thought he was going to play Division I basketball. They gave him the offer. He accepted on the spot. They said, please no, go home and think about it. He accepted the next day. So I think all that will change. Scott Dolson is going to do everything to put Indiana in a position to not only win, but to win in a way that is fun and that really gets back to being Indiana basketball.
But you want to know what, Jim? What are schools like Oral Roberts and Loyola Chicago doing? Recruiting gets talked about, but to me, development is king.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to get players better once they get here. And there's something to be said for cohesion too, getting old and staying old, and that's going to be another challenge when you rebuild and you start over. And some of that is, obviously, I think the first job of the coach is to buy in, to get guys like Armand Franklin and Trace Jackson Davis to stay because they'll both be juniors, and another year, and you develop them, and maybe you'll have something, and there'll be a lot of because the Big Ten is going to be interesting next year because Iowa loses Luke Garza. There's a lot of talk about some of the Michigan guys. Hunter Dickinson might be one and done. You don't know, so it could open up a lot in the landscape in terms of Indiana being an older team against some of these Big Ten teams. Basunu and Coburn, I think they're both gone, don't you?
Oh, I don't. I'll have to check the draft to see who's going. Coburn, yes, he's gone. That's one of the reasons I don't think that Trace Jackson Davis, if he left, I think it would be to transfer, not to go to the NBA. And he does not want to transfer. That I assure you. And I assure you that Scott Dolson has probably spoken with each and every one of them. And I think that they have his confidence. I really do. Scott is a guy that you can trust. He's a guy that when you look at it and you talk to him, you can trust him. We talk about Justin Smith. Yeah, he is a terrible shooter. Do you know he shoots 60% from the free throw line? 60%. He shoots. That's barely his 2-point percentage is like 50%, which is great, but he's barely over that for free throws, and he's like 22% behind the 3-point line. So he's not a great player. He's a role player.
A lot of bad free throw shooting everywhere. Trust me. I mean, it's not just Indiana, but Indiana's was really egregious at the end. To the point was, it was almost the point in that Rutgers game where I wonder if they were missing on purpose.
Let's see.
It's just ridiculous.
See, Calipari, whether true or not, recruits so well. He has a reputation of getting guys to the league. You got to develop guys. Yeah, he's not developing them though. He's recruiting them. Let me tell you, Tom Crean, I don't care what you say about him. He got guys to the league that were not 5-star guys. Every 7, I say it 1,000 times here, 7 out of the 9 guys in the NBA right now were Tom Crean guys. Eric Gordon wasn't, and Romeo Langford wasn't. But Romeo Langford came as a projected number 5 pick, left as a 12. And Eric Gordon, like I said, all those guys in the middle, Oladipo, OG, Jawan, Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant was a 5-star probably, but OG, Jawan, Vic, those guys were 3 stars and below. They developed here.
Yep.
You have to develop talent, and you don't have to develop NBA talent per se, but they have to develop And that just did not happen here in any way, because everything is built around doing the same thing with Archie, it seems. So if you do the same thing, you're not getting better. And I don't see.
Anyway, Jim, I got to run. Good talking to you as always.
Yep. We got to get off for the football pressers. Guys, thanks a lot. We'll keep at it. And we cannot thank you enough. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Kevin Brockway, of course. Thanks to Chronic Hoosier and Mike DeCoursey. And thanks most importantly to you guys. We appreciate you. Go out and have yourselves a great day. Wear your mask. Do something nice for somebody. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.